And it was like runaway mine train. Like it is a vertical drop at this point. There are no bends, there are no curves, there are no brakes, there's no driver. It is just careering down the mountainside, building up steam as it goes.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, come and join the conversation in our Facebook group.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, everyone.
So we usually have like a cute little intro thing that we talk about and like to tell you something about what's going on in our lives. But this week, I want to get straight into the content because we have so many examples of what we are talking about today from our own lives. We could literally, I think, do an entire 10 episode series on this and still not cover every example that we have, right? So today we want to talk about how conflict avoidance is the huge issue with conflict avoidance we have in our culture and in our society. Because I'm going to go so far as to say that I believe that conflict avoidance is the primary way that people deal with conflict in our society.
I think it's like the conditioned, indoctrinated way of being. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that there might be sometimes different reasons for that. I think that when it comes to being so, for example, being British, there's a very common thing with the Brits that we have this kind of idea of the stiff upper lip, but that you don't show that anything has got to you, but also that you're polite to someone's face, not always behind their back. But you don't name problems. It's very much would be considered, or as I was growing up, I think it would have been considered impolite to point out somebody's behavior or to say that something's not okay or to address an issue. And so what's the mumbling at your end?
The jets.
Oh, I was like, it sounds like someone's rolling something along your floor or something. I was
the
like,
entire trailer is vibrating right now. So
okay, that's cool. I was just like, there's your little intro. Yes, we have naval bases around Key West, and so we get a lot of overhead jets. So I was like, what is that? Anyway, and so I do think that there's an element of that kind of British culture conditioning, which is you don't talk about things that are uncomfortable. You don't mention it's almost like the wartime propaganda was the kind of keep calm and carry on. And it's the funny thing is that in UK culture, it's very passive aggressive because if you're out and about, you'll easily, if you're doing something that people don't think is okay, you'll get that's kind of the most that you'll normally get from people, or you did when I was growing up, and it's people roll their eyes or you get a look, but there's no addressing of the situation. It's just a form of ritualized shaming basically that's happening in our society. And so there's different reasons why this happens, but conflict avoidance, I'm going to say something now, and I'm not sure if it's an absolute or not, but I would go so far as to say that conflict avoidance is probably one of the primary causes of conflict in our society. And I can see people going, wait, what? Say that again. I believe that conflict avoidance is one of the biggest causes of conflict in our society. And the reason for that is what tends to happen with conflict avoidance. And I've got examples till the cows come home with this, where something relatively small happens, like in comparative terms. And then, but that isn't addressed. They avoid the conflict. They avoid the addressing of the issue when it is a small thing. But that means that all of the unmet needs that are associated with that small thing stay unmet, because also people don't know how to meet their own needs. So it's not like you can go, I'm not going to deal with this because it's going to blow up in my face and I'm going to have more to deal with, but I'm going to go and address the needs that have been impacted from that. What ends up happening is that those unmet needs stay unmet, and the feelings associated with the issue remain. And normally they get shoved down and ignored and repressed and suppressed and all the things. And then what ends up happening is that a little later, something else happens. And that we have a reaction to that something else happening. But that reaction doesn't stand alone. It then gets combined with the reaction from the first thing. And if you continue to avoid the conflict at that point, then what ends up happening is that there's another thing that happens. And these may all seem like small things, but what ends up happening is that the impact of them ends up being compounded, because like unexpressed emotions don't tend to just stagnate and stay the same. They tend to build, because what ends up happening is that people will marinate on what has happened, i.e. they will replay it over and over and over again. And every time they play it over, they get angry about it again. So it's another little bit of anger added to the little concoction we have.
And I mean, honestly, the further away you get from the moment that the conflict happened, the intricacies of the story can change. And then all of a sudden you have this,
and the memories.
Exactly. You have this fucked up game of operator, and it's like, well, it happened like this, and it's like, no, it happened like this. And then like,
for those of us from an international audience, you're going to have to explain what the game operator is.
Are you I was like, are you serious? That was like,
no, childhood. I'm joking.
Yeah. So operator is basically like, we used to play it a lot of times. It'd be like in a line or a circle, and you have, let's just say 10 people, and one person whispers something in the ear of the person next to him, and then that person whispers the same phrase into the ear of the next person. And
we had the same thing, but it was called a problematic term. I'm not going to repeat what it was called, but if you're from the UK, you know what it was called when we were kids. I've never heard it called operator though, but
yeah, that's the game we used to play. And then usually by the end, like, it's jumbled. Sometimes it's really off, like, and it can be, you know, I feel like it's a game that has a point kind of wrapped into it. It's like, you know, you're teaching kids at a young age, like, look at how quickly like the story can change just from one person to the next. And I feel like our memories and sometimes our consciousness can do that, or it can take, you know, what's coming to my mind is prior to, you know, like any relationship, there is kind of these navigations that you have to do. And what would happen with Joe and I is there would be something simple like, oh, the dishes didn't get done. And that was like a little niggle. And as we mentioned in the last episode, if you're watching, I have realized or been reminded that niggle is not a common term. But it is in our language, but it's basically that little like irritation. Like, it's just a little something that's like, usually not huge. However, if you do not address it, the niggle monster will eat off your unmet needs and all the other bullshit going on in your life. And it will like feed that thing after midnight, and they will
watch you on the video. You'll see I do have the niggle monster with me.
Where's his backpack?
It's there.
Oh, it is.
Still
Okay.
has it. Yeah, don't worry. He still has his glitter available.
His emergency glitter.
So you were saying about how that's like your memories can sometimes kind of warp what's happened.
In different instances. It's like, okay, it started with the dishes, but then there was this one time where this didn't get cleaned up, and then there was this one time where this didn't happen, and then all of a sudden this one little niggle may not be being remembered as correctly as it, initially was, or the impact, maybe that's it. The impact feels a lot greater because you've been sitting with it now. Like, it's not a niggle that you had.
Both are true. I think both are true. I think often, there have been times when, I actually had a very interesting session with two clients of mine several years ago. And it was a couple. And so we were doing some kind of couple relationship stuff as well as the individual stuff around needs. And there was a moment where I'd asked one of them a question and they were answering the question. They were giving like a couple of things, like a couple of points as the answer. And the other one went, well, how are you going to do that? And both of us went, do what? And he said, well, you said this. And both of us went, I don't think she did. And he was like, yeah, she did. She said this. And literally just happened. And I'm like, that's not what I heard. And it was so interesting because those of us, if you're listening and if you've been a client of mine, you know that we record the sessions so that I can make the sessions available to my clients afterwards. So they don't have to worry about taking notes and remembering things as it's happening. So you can go back and re-listen to it later if it's helpful, or if I've mentioned a book or a resource or something that might be helpful, you can kind of have that. So as soon as they left, I went back and I listened to the recording. And I was like, that's not what she said. And the following session, what I did was I was like, okay, I'm going to share this with you just because, and I'm not sharing this to blame or shame anybody. This is not about him in the situation. This, I'm sure, happens both ways to everyone involved in the situation, but I'm just going to do it to show what has actually happened. And I replayed the recording and I transcribed it so they could see on the screen exactly what was said. And he was like, I was sure that's what she'd said. And I'm like, I know. And I'm sure there are times when she was sure that she heard you say something or that she heard somebody else say something. And this is just our memory is not as robust and as reliable as we believe it is. It's the reason eyewitnesses aren't actually a very good evidence when it comes to court cases, because people can misremember things, or they notice different things, or they didn't notice different things. So I think both are true. I think you're right that because there's been distances it's happened, like you've continued to replay it in your mind, so that every time you do that, you're amplifying the impact of it. But I also think what ends up happening is that when we replay it, we replay what we thought happened, not necessarily what actually happened. And there may be a difference. I mean, one of the most powerful things that I have learned to do in recent years, there was a point in time where if I thought that I'd heard something or somebody had said something, I would have been like, this is absolutely the case. And now, I mean, we say it to each other all the time. I'm like, that's not what I remembered happening, but don't trust my memory. Mm-hmm. Like, I could absolutely be wrong about that. And that actually often diffuses a lot of those situations and allows for a different kind of conversation. But I think you're right. I think that it's very common for the specifics to be misremembered or to be warped in a direction of what a lot of the time they're warped in the direction that is in alignment with our needs, our unmet needs specifically. So it's like, if we have an unmet value need, we're going to warp what's heard and we're going to replay it in a way which is in agreement with the fact that we have done something wrong, there's something wrong with us or what have you. So a lot of the time, I think that's also because we're hearing, like, we often talk about the needs lens as something we put on to understand what's happening outside of us. We have to also understand the needs lens is also what we take information through. So our unmet needs are what we see, hear, and experience life through, which means that there's going to be some bias in what we're hearing and seeing and remembering according to where our needs are met and unmet.
Mm-hmm. And all of this stuff it's simple things, and nothing like, I'm not talking like, we're literally talking about dishes. And like, I remember there was one point specifically where there was just capacity was low on both parts. There was stress. Mm-hmm. There was all the things. It was in the midst of traveling. And I don't know, one of us just had the moment of kind of like rah. And even the raw wasn't like,
technical
it
term,
wasn't
that.
yeah, that is the needs-based term for it. Just raw. And we both immediately were like, okay, like this seems disproportionate for what's going on here. And it was both of us trying to be conflict avoidant with the little things. Like, I didn't want to bring it up because I knew you were busy, and it's something so simple. And it's like, but if it's something so simple and it bothers you, like, the easiest thing, like, one of the things was, and Joe typically does the dishes in the setup that we have. And so he likes to kind of compartmentalize, like, okay, there's a mug and that has like the silverware in it while it's soaking and whatnot. And he's like, if you could just do like this, and this, super simple things, he's like, it would make everything so much easier. And it's like, yeah, I can absolutely do like we were saying in the last, the last episode, just being kind of upfront with like, this is what would make this situation feel just this much better. Right. And now, like, once we started to, I think that's one of the areas that we had a hard time kind of doing the, like, avoiding conflict avoidance, because we're like, we don't want to impact that. Like, it's not a big deal and I can deal with this. And then realizing, no, that's going to build up. Now it's like, hey, can you do this? Like, that would be helpful. If not, fine. And like, this would make it a little easier. And I'd say 99% of the time it's like, yeah, sure. And there's no bubbling. Like, there's not that like, oh, I'm just waiting for that one sock to drop or something. And be like, I'm gonna and everything goes
pop. And absolutely. Yeah. And this is helpful in any form of relationship. It's helpful in working relationships. It's helpful in friendships. It's helpful in family relationships. It's helpful in intimate relationships. Like, it literally is helpful in any situation. The challenge is that obviously we cannot change whether somebody else is conflict avoidant or not. We can't make somebody have a conversation with us if we don't want to. And
we've tried.
We've not tried to make somebody do it. We've invited them into conversations, and they have been like, nope. But I think that this is like, I think that actually conflict avoidance is one of the biggest causes of rupture in relationship compared to almost anything, because communication is one of the needs of a relationship. Now, if you've listened to us talk about relationships before, you'll know that we each have individual needs, but we also have the relationship then becomes a third entity, and the relationship has needs. Now, I'm not responsible. So let's talk about me and Serena, for example. So I have my needs, Serena has her needs, and then the relationship between us has needs. Now, I'm not responsible for Serena's needs and she's not responsible for mine, but we are both equally responsible to ensure that the needs of the relationship get met. And one of the needs of the relationship is communication. If we are not communicating effectively about what is going on, that is going to fester and it is going to build. And eventually what ends up happening is what could be a very simple conversation about that is like a 2-minute conversation that really isn't a big deal, ends up becoming either an explosive argument because you get to the point where the dam bursts and it's like, everything that's happened in the last 23 years finally comes flooding out all at once. Or we get to the point where the relationship breaks as a result of it. So it's not like we have a reaction. The relationship just is unsustainable without those things being resolved, which means that the relationship ends up crumbling. And I cannot tell you the number of relationships that have imploded in my life because of conflict avoidance. I mean, I mean, literally, I run out of fingers very quickly for the amount of situations that this happened. And the heartbreaking thing about this is that if these things had been addressed early on, they would have been super quick, super easy, super simple. There would have been no charge around them. The charge increases over time. So you might have like a little bit of charge when it first happens, But then when it comes to actually addressing it, it's like, oh, well, that was easy. That's normally how those conversations go. And I mean, there's a couple of kind of obvious examples that come to mind where, like, I had a situation with a friend here who was a very good friend, and I was helping them out with an organization that they were involved with. And what ended up happening was there were issues in that relationship from their perspective for months that I wasn't aware of, because I mean, I knew that there was stress and they were kind of being a little different, but it's very difficult to tell whether that's because of something between the two of you, or whether that's because they've got other stuff going on in their life. I mean, they had other stresses and things that were going on. So it wasn't something where I was like, oh, this is obviously something between the two of us that we need to resolve. Because if I'd known that at that point, I would have been the one to go, hey, feel like there's something going on here. Why don't we have a chat about it? I wasn't aware of it. And so what ended up happening was then later on, there was a different situation in which, I mean, ironically, in this situation, the funny thing was I maybe did 1 or 2% of the things that they were upset about. Somebody else did a larger proportion of the I'm not going to out you, she says. Somebody not a million miles away from here did the other things that there were issues with.
And admittedly.
Yes. Oh, it wasn't like I looked and I went, what the fuck, Serena? This is all you. Serena's like, no, this is me. Like, what are you talking about? Claire had nothing to do with any of that shit. But the problem was, because the original issues hadn't been resolved, they were already built up in, I mean, they'd already demonized me in their mind. And I know that sounds like quite an extreme word to use, but it's legitimately, I believe, what actually happened. So I was already demonized about these situations. And the irony was, the things that I've been demonized about were things in which I was trying to support them. But because of their unmet needs and because of how they deal with things, they weren't able to receive it as how, and I didn't, it was one of those situations where I thought the objective was one thing. They thought the objective was something different, and they never communicated that difference to me. And I was like, oh, okay, so our objective is to do this. Great. And I did that tenfold what most people would have expected to be done. So I thought I was helping because that's what I'd been asked to do. And it turned out that that wasn't what was needed because, again, lack of communication. So what ended up happening is when this second scenario happened, it was funny because even with that, nothing was communicated. But because I'm a human behavior specialist, because I'm very energetically sensitive and aware, and I got really good intuition, I'm like, and we all knew there was something like there had been some stresses around the situation. So we all just thought everyone was a little bit stressed. Everyone had a few things that they were kind of a little bothered by. And we would, on the other side of it, we'd have a conversation, we'd talk it out, figure it out, have a good laugh about it and carry on. And it was funny because I got very sick after the second situation happened. And Serena got sick as well, but Serena got better faster than me. And we had always said that what we would do is that once everyone got well, everyone was kind of recovered, we would invite them for a coffee, we'd have a sit, chat about it, I said to Serena, I don't know why, I've got a feeling that you should send a message, don't include me in on it. And Serena was like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I just have this feeling that there's something there. I would suggest that. And the response came back was, I'll meet with you, but not with Claire. And I'm like, well, there we go. I was obviously right about that in some respect. And when Serena met up with this person, I mean, I'll let you describe what happened because
they unloaded of a year's worth of niggles that they had never said anything. And then with that situation, the one that kind of pushed it over the edge.
Yeah.
Claire and I are a team when we do things. And so for that situation, both of us were, kind of intertwined doing our thing, both very involved with it. And he brought
But
up
we also take responsibility for our own parts in whatever we're doing in the context of that partnership.
Yes. And as he was going through what the issues were, I was like, you probably should have talked to her about those, because, you know, I get how you see X,
The
Y,
initial
Z. I'm like,
ones.
yeah, the initial ones. I was like, the reality, the situation is actually like LMNO. So like you're kind of off here. Like I think,
LMNO?
well, I said X, like he was saying the
I
issues are
see.
X, Y, Z, and I'm like, they're
Got you.
actually,
The
you know,
situation's not
LMNO, just three
right.
different letters.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
there were 4 letters and 3 letters. I think I was also confused by that. I was like, is this some other American
oh yeah, you can't
thing?
say LMN without saying oh.
I was like, is this some American slang I'm not aware of? Sorry, carry on.
No, just my brain being my brain. And so then came the topic of the newest issues, and one issue was brought up, and I was like, yeah, actually, no, that wasn't like cheat into, this was my idea. And then it was the next, you know, niggle, and then it was like, no, that was me. And oh, and then she did this, and I'm like, no, I did that actually. And it was like literally every single thing I was like, me, 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 me again, both of us, me, like, and it wasn't me trying to rescue Claire from the situation. It was just me, like, yeah, like that happened, that did happen, but the person that you put into that space is wrong. It was me. Like, I know, because
I was there.
It was
I
me.
did it.
Yeah. And the end response, there was a lot. This was a very long conversation. The end response was, yeah, for some reason I'm fine with you, but yeah, no, I'm not okay with Claire. And it's like, what? But the things that you just said you had an issue were of me. Fine, don't be fine with me, but like, how are you going to be fine with me and not be fine with her based on the niggles that you specified? And the thing is that's so infuriating about this situation is that it could have been handled at the beginning, sometime after the beginning, in the 6 months between the beginning and the next one, when it started, because the niggles weren't something like, it was a little thing here, a little thing here. They never spoke up. They never spoke up. They never spoke up. They never spoke up.
Yeah.
So then when they spoke up, they're like, there are all these things. And I'm like, if you had just addressed those, like when they happened over the last, like, it was like over the course of pretty much like a month and a half that these things were adding up. I'm like, this could have been stopped at any point had you just said, we need to talk. I don't feel like whatever the niggle was at the time. I'm like, this could have been.
And the other thing is that if the first niggle had been communicated, it actually could have potentially saved 100 niggles down the line. Because if I'd known, because it was like, oh, that's a thing. I didn't realize that. Thank you for letting me know that. It means I can pivot now and change how I'm doing things so that the way we're working works for both of us. And I mean, the irony of all of this is that the thing that caused the issue was something that was like, it took a lot of energy and effort from me to achieve this thing, which is what I thought they wanted. If I hadn't had to do that, it would have made my life way easier. I would have been like, oh, cool. I thought I was doing the thing that you wanted me to do. And I didn't. If that's not the case, cool. I can spend more time on my business. I can do, like, I've got plenty. I'm not sitting at home twiddling my thumbs going, oh, I wish I had a project on right now. I don't think I've ever done that in the course of my life.
Joe is like, I'm worried that you're not going to have anything to do once we're out of Key West. I'm like,
do not worry about that. Yes.
Don't worry.
That's not a thing. That won't be a thing. And so it would have been helpful for me. I was able to do it, but it would have made my life way easier. It would have been better for everyone involved. And because I didn't have an issue, I was just doing what I thought that was being asked of me. And the irony is, like, one of the other things was that they'd accused me of trying to turn them against a certain group of people. And I was like, that's so weird, because my recollection of that was that they were complaining about said group of people and what was happening. And I was trying to acknowledge and validate what they were saying, because it was like, it was fair, it was reasonable. And I was offering support around that. And that was, and this is what I mean, is that because those few initial things, the train had left the tracks, and it was like runaway mine train. Like, it is a vertical drop at this point. There are no bends, there are no curves, there are no brakes, there's no driver. It is just careering down the mountainside, building up steam as it goes, which meant that by the end of the situation, I was considered public enemy number one for things I hadn't done, that the person who had done them had said face to face, no, she didn't do that, that was me. But the situation, it was like, at that point, it had gone so far that whether it was in their own mind, they couldn't fully like rein it back in again and get it back on course again, whether it was just they'd acted on it too much by that point and had laid their line in the sand for who I was as a person and could not.
They put on their conductor hat and they're like, choo choo, we're going for this.
Right, exactly. And it's like, and at that point, to save face, they have to continue because they've spoken to other people and they've said this is who this person is. And in order to pivot, they would have to go, yeah, shit, sorry, I got that wrong. That was me. Oops. I've made my peace and I've apologized and made amends, what have you. But this is just one example of where this avoidance of conflict created, I'm not just talking like 10 times more conflict, 100 times more conflict. I'm talking exponentially more conflict than there ever needed to be. And the irony is, we had somebody who like was close with both of us. They'd been talking to this person about what had happened, or rather this person had been talking to them about what happened. And the irony was, they said, this is Claire. If there is anyone you could talk to about this who would be like, thank you for letting me know. Yes, let's figure this out so we can make it work for both of us. It's Claire. And so it wasn't even because I was somebody who was like super scary, that they were worried if they bought something to me, I was going to start cussing them out, or fists would start swinging, or like, you know, like there was none of that in the situation. Even with somebody where their openness to have a conversation. I mean, I've said in the past that I'm probably too open to people coming back and having conversations with me, because people sometimes who have done unimaginably harmful things, if like the very tenet of the work that we do is I have to believe in the ability of people to change. I know it's possible because I've done it. I see it in my clients all the time. And so I'm open to the possibility someone could go through some kind of dramatic self-reflection and real period of kind of introspection and growth. And they could come out the other side and be like, oh my God, I cannot believe what I did to that person, and want to kind of come back and make amends, depending on the circumstances, depending on the individual, depending on how they did it. There's a possibility I would be open to, okay, I'll hear what you've got to say. And if they would genuinely, I cannot believe what I did, I'm so sorry, here's the things that I've learned, here's how I'm not going to do it. Like if they've gone through, in effect, the apology blueprint and really done it effectively, there's a possibility I would be like, okay, well, you're probably not going to be close in my world because of what happened, but I'm willing to have a kind of civil interaction with you going forward, because I can see that you've changed. And who knows, if over time trust could be built, who the hell knows what happens. So even when you're talking about somebody like me, people are so afraid of, and I don't believe it's necessarily about the conflict. I actually think conflict avoidance is in some ways a misnomer. I think it's a way that people can blame on something they think it's valid for them to blame. So I actually think that the reason people avoid conflict is more because they do not like the discomfort of either facing what they have done themselves and having to name it, own it, and actually have to do something about it, or they haven't done their own work to kind of deal with their discomfort around things, which means that when they don't want to bring something to somebody else, because the second that somebody else gets uncomfortable, they get uncomfortable and they don't know how to deal with that discomfort. So they'd rather just avoid the entire thing completely. I don't think it's conflict avoidant. I think that people go, oh, well, it's valid to not want to have conflict. So I can say I'm conflict avoidant, implying that there would be a conflict in that. But I think a lot of the times what gets avoided is communication and resolution. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's conflict that gets avoided. I think it's healing. But that healing requires work and effort and self-reflection, which most people aren't prepared to do.
I think that, damn it. Come back. Like,
Go back to you.
You were saying about, what were you just saying about conflict avoidance?
I was saying, well, the last thing I said was about the fact that I think it's misnamed. I think that they're actually avoiding, like, looking at themselves in the mirror and the discomfort of owning the mistakes they've made, or where other people are have discomfort and they're not comfortable with other people being uncomfortable, so they'd rather just avoid the entire thing. I think it was before that you had the thought.
Yeah, it's gone. We're gonna move on, and maybe it will come back. So
I'm trying to think what I said before that. I think, was it about the fact that when I was talking about the fact that of all people, I'm one of the easiest people to have that conversation with, and I wouldn't be okay. If it comes back, wave at me.
No, but there is another side thought. It wasn't the thought that I was having, but going back to that situation that Claire and I were both involved in, like the conflict avoidance that happened over, pick any individual instance or the entire shit show as a fucking whole, but the negative impact of avoiding the situation and avoiding addressing it for whatever reason, whether it was they were in their own shit, they thought Claire was going to be in their shit, whatever it was, impacted their needs, impacted Claire's needs, impacted my needs, impacted the needs of the community that we shared together, impacted organizations, impacted the island as a whole. Like, the trajectory,
the ripple effect was huge.
It was,
and still is,
massive. Yeah,
and still is, because
to this day, to this
day. And the irony of all of this, and this is the piece of the story that we haven't shared, is that I kind of gave it space, because I was like, you know what? And so here's the thing. When Serena reflected to me all this stuff, and the fact that this person didn't want to have a conversation with me, I took it on myself. I wrote a huge letter of apology addressing all of the things, because I'm not sitting there going, well, that's all on them. I'm like, I didn't realize I was impacting them, but if I was doing that, that's something I want to address. It's something I want to deal with. So I wrote a very long apology to them, to somebody else that they had said that there was also an issue with. And also they had told me that it was an issue for everyone who was involved in, or the implication was that there were a large number of people who were affected by it during the second situation. And again, I didn't know who it was. I sent an apology to every single person who was a part of that, saying, I don't know the specifics. If this is the case, I am so sorry about it. If you want to talk to me about it, I'm totally open to that. If there's anything I can do to address it, I'm more than happy to do that. And the irony is that the vast majority of the people who were involved, who then responded to me, were like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was amazing. Like, thank you so much for everything you did. So I was like, okay. I'm like, I don't know whether that, I don't know what the truth is, but I apologized to everybody I could have. I took responsibility for anything I could have. And I tried to make it right. And the situation got real uncomfortable. like real uncomfortable for a long time. And I was like, this is sucks. And I don't want it to be uncomfortable. And I think it's uncomfortable for them. I think it's uncomfortable for me. And the truth of the matter is, I know this person is resolution avoidant, shall we say. And so I know that they are never going to reach out to me to be like, hey. And they also had something quite significant that went on in their personal life that I was aware of. And I mean, they'd somebody who had been a former friend of mine, and they're a human being. So I also felt for them in the context of what was going on. So after several months, I reached out to them and said, look, hey, could we grab a coffee just to kind of clear the air? Like, I don't want things to be awkward for me. I don't want this to be awkward for you. I don't want this to be awkward for the community. Can we just like meet and kind of clear the air? We met. The conversation, the situation wasn't really discussed. But I was like, okay. And things seemed to be fine. And I thought that they were at the point where, okay, at least we can be civil. We don't have to worry about there being issues in the community anymore. You can do you, I can do me. If we're in the same space, we can be civil. And then I don't know what has happened. Something obviously has happened since that point in time. And I have no clue what it is. And all of a sudden it's gone off a cliff again. And it's been made really clear that they are not okay with me. And I'm like, I don't like, at this point, it's almost comical. If it wasn't affecting other people, I would think it was kind of borderline comical, because it's like, okay, there were some miscommunications and misunderstandings that weren't resolved to begin with. Then there was a whole situation that actually really was like 99% not me, but I've been made out to be the bad guy. Then I've tried to resolve those situations and I've tried to create peace, and we've still got off cliff. And I'm at the point where I'm like, I haven't a clue at this point. And it was funny because Serena even said to me at one point, do you think it's worth having a conversation with them again? And I'm like, I've done that. Like, it doesn't seem to matter. I think they've played the scenarios in their head the way that they think they are so many times that they are so committed to that being reality. I don't think it would matter what I did. And the truth of me, like, I've still done things to support their organization. I've sent donors their way. Like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that, like, I've continued to act as I would as if it hadn't happened, because like it's not like there's nothing, it's not worth hanging on to anything from my side of things. I've taken care of the needs that have been compromised from mine side as part of this. I've done everything I can. And so even now, after trying to resolve it, I think more than, Serena said to me at various points, you have done so much more than any other person would have done, given how this situation has happened. And I've gone the extra mile to try to create, that would be my prompt to meet my needs. Sorry, we're talking about it right now. Thanks. And I've done as much as I can to try and create some kind of civility, some kind of peace in the situation. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think there's anything I can do to resolve it. It just is what it is. And I just have to make my peace with it, and I navigate around it as best I can, without doing anything that I think can flare it up even more. I'm not sure if that's even possible at this point. But all for a conversation about something that was relatively minor. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, the interesting thing about this is, while how they've handled things has not been entering any one of a number of adjectives here, like it's not been kind, it's not been civil, it's not been community focused, it's not been decent, I don't think, in terms of how it's been handled. And there have been impacts to me and others as a result of this. They've shown me who they are. And in actual fact, I'm like, this is somebody who was quite close in my inner circle. they were not somebody who belonged in my inner circle. And so while I wouldn't have wanted things to have played out the way that they have, they had no place being there. So I'm like, okay, I'm glad I see you for who you are now. And I'm glad that I'm not at risk by having somebody who is not in alignment with me in terms of values and how we do relationship being very close to me. So in some respects, it's been a good thing, but we could have still reached that same conclusion without all of the impact to other people in the process. And I think that's the thing, is that it's created so much more, because I don't know that it is necessarily conflict that it creates, because I don't think, I think it's harm. I think that's what's been created. I think that's what's been, like, the harm has been done to the community, to other people, to organizations, and all that sort of thing. And I look back and I go, I really wish that hadn't been the case. And there was a way of dealing where we're like, you know what, if the way I work and the way you work doesn't work together, we talked about it in the last episode. You have the conversation like I really appreciate you and what you're doing, but I don't think we're a fit as close friends. Okay, cool. Like, I get that. I'm not for everybody. I'm a very, very acquired taste, and not everyone has acquired it just yet. And I'm okay with that. In the same way as not everybody's a fit to be a close friend with me. But because my needs are met, I don't take that as being a reflection on me as a person. And I think that's the piece that a lot of other people do. They take that as, oh, that's because there's something wrong with me, because it's triggering their unmet needs. Anything more you want to say? Because I kind of want to get into, so how do we avoid conflict avoidance? But I'm kind of seeing, I thought you had a thought before I kind of get into that.
I did. Well, I'm looking at the OneNote we have for this, and realizing in this situation, that person was, you know, we talk about now that you know our shapes, and we have the drama triangle, the positions in the drama triangle. If you don't, we'll throw the episode in the show notes. But this person kind of pinged back and forth between two different positions in the drama triangle while being conflict avoidant. Like they were utilizing it from two totally different positions within the same scenario. So I wasn't sure, like, I didn't know if you had a thought process of when you were adding that in, but that's what
I had
that was the eye
completely forgotten that note that existed. So so thank you for the reminder. We can bring that in now before we get into how to avoid conflict avoidance. So yeah, it's really important to recognize that you can be in any one of the positions in the drama triangle while you are in a conflict avoidant state. So you can be in the victim position, which is like, oh, I can't possibly deal with it because of the effect it's having on me. And there's a difference between, I need to take some space so I can go and process and heal from the impact, and then we can have a meaningful and productive conversation about this. And I'm going to use poor me as the reason why I can't possibly have a conversation about this today, tomorrow, 3 months, 3 years, 30 years from now, because I've just been so, and it may be that, and there's a difference again between being conflict avoidant and setting appropriate boundaries. Like, it's possible to say to somebody, you know what, what I witnessed or what I experienced with you means that I'm choosing to not have any interaction with you going forward. I'm setting a boundary. And again, that's like, I'm setting a boundary is not avoiding the conflict. It's making a choice that you no longer want to engage with that person because of the harm that has been done to you. Perfectly legitimate, perfectly valid approach. But what you'll end up seeing is people going like, I can't possibly deal with this. I'm going to use my victimhood as a justification for not having the uncomfortable conversation. And I'm then going to also use like, poor me, to have everyone around me go, oh my God, poor you, what happened? I'm so sorry. What do you need? And to try to get their needs met, which is ultimately what victim approach position is all about. It's about engaging in behaviors to try to get our needs met, a lot of the time by baiting other people into trying to meet them for us. it's possible that you can actually do this from the rescuer position, which is like, and a lot of the time the rescuer position, where this kind of comes from with rescuer is like, if you're the one who's been harmed and you're in that people pleaser mode of like, oh, it's fine, no, it's fine, I'm okay, but we're doing that because we want to rescue the other person from the consequences of their choices and the consequences of their actions. It's like, I'm not going to make them uncomfortable when you're not making them uncomfortable. The fact that they've done the thing that they've done is what makes them uncomfortable. You're just naming it. But the avoidance of that can be the people pleaser coming out, which is that, oh, okay, I'm trying to rescue them from themselves kind of thing. And then you can also be doing it from a persecutor position, i.e. you can be withdrawing and fortressing, which is one of the persecutor approach behaviors, which is where like you basically stonewall and put like and put barriers up, not boundaries. Because boundaries, there is like, I am doing this as a way to try to support my needs in a way that is actually mindful of the other person. I'm going to do it the self-first way. I'm going to do it at the minimum in ways that don't negatively impact somebody else. When we're talking about fortressing and withdrawing, a lot of time it's a form of punishment to the other person. It's like, I'm going to punish them by not talking to them. I'm going to put this fortress around me so that they get left out in the cold by themselves, and everybody else I know gets to be a part of this. So it's like, and there's nuance in this. Like, we go into this in depth in the program and in a way that we can't possibly cover in a episode of the podcast. But this is just to kind of note that a lot of the time people would think about what are the positions of the drama triangle that show up when it comes to this. They wouldn't necessarily think about the rescuer, and they wouldn't necessarily think about the persecutor, because it's like, well, the conflict avoidant is like, it's like a passive or a timid thing, and the persecutor tends to be quite a kind of proactive or there are exceptions to this, but you think about the persecutor being quite an active role. The interesting thing about this is a lot of the time when you're in conflict avoidance, I think it's resolution avoidance personally, but we'll call it conflict avoidance because that's the term that everybody understands and knows. When you're in a conflict avoidance state or space, what a lot of the time is, you're not addressing it with the person that could create resolution, but boy, are you talking your ass off about it to everybody else. Mm-hmm. And you're bashing the other person in the situation, but you're doing it in such a way that there can be no resolution. And again, there's a difference between, I'm sharing this with somebody to process this so I can heal from it so that I can then create resolution with this person, or make a decision that actually I want to put a boundary down or whatever. And I'm doing this to feel better about myself in the situation, to position them as the bad guy in order that I look like the good guy, in order that people think I'm to meet my value need, to meet my emotional experience expression need, to meet my acknowledgement need. So people go, oh my God, yeah, poor you, she's terrible. How could she have done that to you? I mean, chances are they got the version of the story that Serena got, not the corrected version that Serena adjusted when she met them in person. So I'm like, this is one of those situations where we don't necessarily, it seems very one-dimensional, but when you start to get into it, there's so many different behaviors, because avoiding the conflict is only part of it, because they're still going to try and meet their needs, but they're not meeting their needs in supportive, constructive ways. They're not going, where are my needs being compromised? I'm going to take care of those needs myself. They're going to go, well, if I go and bitch to this person about it, they're going to say, poor you, and they're going to make me feel fabulous, and they're going to tell me it's all the other person's fault, and I'm totally within my rights to feel what I am. So that is my way of feeling superior. That's my way of feeling better. That's my way of getting my acknowledgement need met. None of it's constructive, because it's coming at the cost of somebody else, even if that person isn't part of the conversation. If you are positioning yourself as superior to somebody else, you're disconnecting from their humanity, because you are seeing yourselves on a different levels. You disconnect from their humanity, you disconnect from yours. You disconnect from your humanity, you're compromising your value need, because your connection to your humanity is one of the ways we get our value need met. So it's so interesting. Like we think about it as just, oh, it's just not having the conversation, but there are so many other behaviors that sort of wrap around that are all part and parcel of this. And none of them are actually helpful for anyone in the situation, including the person who is doing them, even though they're normally a subconscious strategy to try to get their own needs met. They just never succeed. And I felt like there was something you wanted to add in there. So I see you dancing around rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you avoid being conflict avoidant? Well, the very first thing, obviously, as usual, is take care of your own needs. Because one of the reasons we avoid conflict is because we avoid the uncomfortable situations, and we're going to get into this a little deeper in the coming episodes, is because the uncomfortable situations trigger those unmet needs. So it's like if we're already feeling not unworthy, and then we get into an uncomfortable situation where we might have to own that we've done some things that maybe have contributed to that situation, it's so easy for that guilt of like, I've done something wrong, to very quickly switch into the shame. And if you don't know about this, go and listen to the guilt and shame series, because we go into this in much more depth. Switch that shame of there's something wrong with me, that compounds that unmet value need. So the more our needs are unmet, the harder it is to have these conversations, because we will interpret the conversations in a way that amplifies the needs that are already unmet. So first things first, support your own needs before going into these conversations, because they will make it easier, and it will make you take it less personally. And like, it's like, there's a difference when I say less personally, it doesn't mean to say that you don't have to own the things that you've done. But a lot of time when we take things personally, what we're actually doing is we're going down the shame route, which is there's something wrong with me. And it allows us to kind of stay very focused on, okay, what did I do? And also, how can I address it? How can I make it right? How can I heal the situation? If you need the apology blueprint, we'll put the link to the apology blueprint episode in here as well, because that's literally a step-by-step in how you heal these kinds of situations. So the first thing is take care of your needs. The second thing is practice these conversations. One, find the people who you can have these conversations with, because you can't have these conversations with anyone. Because if you go, okay, so I want to talk to you about something, and they're like, they disappear in a swirl of dust because they've run for the hills, chances are this is probably not somebody it's going to be easy to have this kind of a conversation with. So it is important to cultivate the relationships where you can have these conversations. And the easiest thing to do with this is start having these uncomfortable conversations over the teeniest, tiniest little things, when there is less emotional charge for both you and the other person. I'm seeing you nodding. You want to jump in?
Oh no, I'm just thinking of 1,000,001 different like bottleneck of
scenarios,
examples that I'm like, yep.
And because it's like anything, we want to practice this the way that, like, if the very first time you try to go and resolve a situation is this huge situation which multiple people have been negatively impacted and their needs have been impacted off the charts, there's a lot of emotion in that. And the more emotion there is, the more it's going to amplify the discomfort of the situation. The more that is amplified, the harder that it is for those conversations to happen on both sides. The other thing to do as you are having these conversations is to be transparent about it. And I don't mean just like, here's the thing, and direct, like we talked about in the last episode. It's not just saying, here's the thing. It's about also mentioning all of the things that are around the thing. So for example, if looking at the scenario we just had, if this person had come to me and said, look, I just want you to know it's super uncomfortable for me to have this conversation with you. Like, I'm not used to doing this. This is something I'm trying to learn to do because I think it will be better for my relationships. I just wanted to let you know, like, this thing that you did, I was uncomfortable with that because I took it to mean this. And I'm not necessarily saying that you have to change it, but maybe if you could help me understand what was your reason for doing it, or maybe if it's not that important to you, if it is something you would be willing to change, I would really appreciate that. And I'm like, and I understand, like, I'm just learning how to do this. I might not phrase this in the best way possible. So I would really appreciate it if you give me a little bit of grace around this, because I'm just learning. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I really want us to have a strong connection. And I know that this will only get stronger the more we're able to communicate about these things and more we're able to learn what works for each other and doesn't. That's very, very different to going, that thing you did really pissed me off. Because the truth of the matter is, all of that stuff is actually true. And if you share that with me in that moment, I can see your humanity and I can see your vulnerability, and I can be like, I can see how difficult this was for you. Like, I really appreciate that you want us to have a better relationship. I really appreciate you sharing this with me. You're far more likely to elicit that response if you bring that transparency of all the things that are around it and not just talk about the issue itself, but actually say like, I'm like, and you could be like, I'm really worried because I don't want you to make you uncomfortable. And obviously I want you to be yourself around me. So let's have like, maybe we can have a talk and figure out if there's a different way of doing things or if there's a way that works for both of us. The more that you talk about that, the more you show that you are thinking about what they're feeling, the more that you're showing that you're not coming at this from I'm superior to you. I know the right way of doing things and you need to do it this way because my way is the right way and your way is the wrong way. And I'm going to tell you that you're wrong and my way is right and you've got to do it this way. The second you start doing that, the barriers are coming up, the defenses are going to be like armed and they're going to be ready for like, okay, which direction is the next attack coming from? But if you're coming at it from I want to have a better relationship with you. I want us to be closer. And I also want to know, is there anything that I've been doing that maybe doesn't work for you? Like, I want to know what I can do better as well. I'm not just asking for this from you. It's something I'm willing to give and I'm willing to offer. Like, transforms that conversation. And and when you first start doing it, that's often the thing that is kind of needed to kind of make it, to have this person realize we're on the same side. I really want this to work for both of us. I'm not just attacking you. I just really want you to know where I'm at, what feels good for me, so that we can learn how to do friendship in a way, or to relationship in a way that works for both of us. And the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it because you're doing it with the small things. One, the easier it becomes to deal with the big things. And two, the less of that there is necessary, because like Serena and I don't do that anymore. I mean, if it was a huge big thing, we might do a little bit of it. But one, I'm not afraid of having that conversation with her anymore because we've had enough of them. I know that she wants to know. And I know that she perfect example of this is a silly example, but perfect example was when I moved into my new place, Serena bought me a housewarming gift, and it was a wonderful housewarming gift. It was really thoughtful. She bought me a comforter for my bed. She knows my bed is a place that I want to feel comfy and cozy. Like, there was a lot of thought that went into it, and it helps with temperature regulation and everything. And I loved the idea, and I put it on my bed and I put my arms on top of it and went, oh, that's a sensory thing. I can't have this touching my skin. Shit. Now what do I do? Because this amazingly thoughtful gift now has been something that compromises my needs. What the hell? So I spoke to another friend of mine and I'm like, maybe if I get some sheets to go underneath it, like then I can have it, use it, but it won't touch my skin, so it'll be fine. Then I had to have a whole thing where I had to find some sheets, and that was a drama unto itself. And they said to me, and I was like, I want to use it. Like, I'm not wanting to use it just because, well, Serena bought it for me, and so if I don't, Serena will be upset. I wanted to use it because it was a thoughtful gift and it was great. This person said to me, like, talk to Serena about it. I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to talk to Serena about it. So I talked to Serena about it. Serena came up with the solution. Serena was like, why don't you get a duvet cover for it? I'm like, I've never had a duvet cover in all the time I've lived in Key West. I've had one everywhere else I've been in the world, but Key West. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing. I could do that. Yeah. And then I can have it be the color I like as well. And then it could be this. And all of a sudden, all the possibilities opened. But if I had been unwilling to have the uncomfortable conversation because I was afraid Serena would be like, she doesn't like my gift, like not getting her anything in the future. But because of all the conversations we've had in the past, there wasn't even a scrap of that in my mind. It really wasn't even I wasn't a worry in that respect. I just wanted to find a solution that would allow me to use this gift because I loved it. And now I have a solution that works really, really well. But the more you do it, and I didn't have to go to Serena, I'm really worried about having this conversation with you because I'm worried that you're going to think that I don't like your present. And I do like your present. But like at the beginning, I probably would have said all of that. But in this one, I was like, I've really got a bit of a challenge with this because I've got this sensory thing with it and I don't like when it touches my skin. And Serena went, oh my God, me too. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're like actually in the same boat with this. She gets it more than I could possibly know. But I didn't need to do all that other stuff because it becomes such a part of our day-to-day life that we don't need to have all that extra communication because all of those things that they're communicating are established as being true in our world because I know we're on the same side. I know she wants the best for me. I know she doesn't want me to be uncomfortable just to use a gift that she's bought me. Like all of the things that, and I'm less uncomfortable having those conversations now. So I don't need to go, oh God, I'm really uncomfortable having this conversation, because now we've got used to it. Now it's a part and parcel of our day-to-day experience. So these conversations become easier the more that you have them. And so by doing it with all the little things, you get lots of little opportunities to have them. And one of the things that can be a big thing at the beginning, especially when you're doing it around the small stuff, is like, God, this person she fusses over every tiny little thing. So you share that as part of the conversation. Like, I don't want you to think that I'm like getting bent out of shape over every tiny little thing. I'm practicing doing this with the small things so that it's less scary for us to have these conversations when it becomes about the big things. The second you say that, oh, well, that makes sense why you're talking to me about the small things now. You're not just a nitpicker who's just wanting everything absolutely perfect according to your standards. So the more transparent you can be around this communication, the easier it is for other people to receive it. And it's better. It's easier for you to then get into a rhythm where it's like, oh, I know I can have these conversations. Oh, they know where I'm coming from when I'm having these conversations. Oh, I can invite these conversations with them. I can be like, something seems slightly off right now. Is everything okay? Do you need to clear anything? And at that point, they'd be like, oh, well, actually, yeah, there's this little thing that was bothering me a little bit, and it didn't seem big enough to mention. But now you've said something. Cool, let's clear it. Let's get it out of the way and let's address it so that it's not causing us any issues. It's not causing you discomfort. It's not causing me discomfort. And it brings our relationship closer together. Like, I'm so curious to see like what your perspective, like, because I know how many situations we've both had where this has been the thing that has destroyed relationships more so than anything else in my experience. Certainly, I don't know about yours.
I mean, you do know my experience and you know that to be true. So
I don't presume to know for a fact. I like to check in.
I mean, honestly, one of the most recent, like, big, huge blowouts of, you know, my life happened because I avoided the conflict many times. And I had reasoning. I had good reasoning. And I knew that there would be a fallout to stepping to this conflict and being like, hey, here it is. And it had nothing to do with me. It was just pointing out something. But then I ended up in a space where I couldn't avoid the conflict and I had to address it. And it led to the most epic blowout I have ever been part of in my life. And I'm like, and it's interesting because there was another person kind of involved in this. And they were like, you said this was going to happen. And I was like, yeah, I knew it was the second I chose to avoid the conflict in the short term and then decided to walk into the situation that the conflict was regarding, thinking it will be fine. And that's the thing. I think we all want to think like it will be fine. It will blow over. It's not going to affect the situation. It's not going to affect the biggest moment of your life. Conflict has a way of just getting in there and like fucking shit up. Like the second,
absolutely,
the quicker you can deal with it, the less rowdy I feel like it is. Like, and we want to avoid that short-term impact. And like for me in the situation that I'm referring to, I'm like, oh, like I can go back to that moment being like, oh, the shit I'm gonna have to deal with if I address this right now. I would a million times over go back to any one of the multiple points I could have stepped in and said something and didn't to have avoided what ended up happening because I avoided saying something for a year. Like, it's just, it uproots like conflict avoidance or resolution avoidance, whichever, terminology you want to use. It really fucking attacks your security need. It attacks the security need of the person who is avoiding, it's affecting the security need of the person who's being avoided. It's affecting the security need of the relationship, because you can always kind of feel like there's some sort of like,
something's off.
Something's off. Even with the example I gave earlier with like the dishes, like you can tell when somebody's a little bit like a little salty.
Right.
And you start out with this like essence of salt. You got like little salt bay doing like little droppies, and then all of a sudden it's a deluge of just like you're in the salt mine, and you're like, oh shit, I'm buried.
Wow.
And then you don't know. It's like your brain starts going into what brains do, and you might be like spinning on a shame spiral, or talking to that trauma experience that happened 10 years ago, and you're like, is this like this? And it takes the any insecurities we have, and it like lets us almost feed on our own insecurities when this element is present, and that's so toxic. Toxic.
Yeah. It's funny. There was like something came in and then it disappeared out again as you were talking. I think that the thing that's so tough about this is when you are in a situation where you have no choice because you're willing to step into the conversation and the other person isn't. And like if you are the one who is being avoided in this situation, the best and most important thing you can do is to take care of the needs of yours that are being impacted by the fact that this is happening, because
that situation wasn't me avoiding the situation. It was the person avoiding talking to me about the situation.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that if you're in that position, like it's so important that you can take care of your needs in order that it's so funny because it popped in and it went out again. I'm like, it's floating. It's around here somewhere. If I can grab it, then we'll be good. But I think that, it's like, when it comes to personal, like one of the things that gets affected in that is our personal power, because it feels like we don't have a choice. And the truth of the matter is we do have a choice, but we might not like the choice that we have. And like I had a choice. I could have continued to step into that space. But the truth of the matter is I didn't want to do that. That was going to negatively impact my needs more than just stepping out the space and being like, you know what, I'm not going to be involved. I'm just going to put the boundaries down. I think that I'm trying to think what that last thing was, because it like popped in and it went out, and it popped in and then it went out. It was something to do with when you were talking about. No, it's gone.
Affecting the security of the people and the relationship.
Yes. And yes, because the other thing about this is it doesn't just affect your security need in the relationships that this is happening in. It can also cause an uproot to your emotion, to your security need in other relationships, because it can be like, oh my God, this sideswiped me. This came out of nowhere. I didn't know this was a thing. This had been going on for hours, days, weeks, months, years, and I had no clue about it. Where else is this true? And it's so it can undermine our needs. So where we are in these, when we notice these situations, it's a little bit like I was talking in the last episode about a friend of mine who had somebody who he kept bringing things to, and they kept like, can't deal with this, can't have the conversation. That was one of those situations where it's like, if you start to notice that pattern happening, and I just remembered there was another thing I was going to say. If you notice these things happening and you can't have the conversations, it's so important to be able to redefine the relationship in a way that means it's not going to compromise your needs. Damn it, it went again. It was something about your damn it. It was so there and then it so wasn't. Welcome to ADHD podcast, everybody. Get used
Enjoy the journey. We have no clue where we're going.
But yeah, I think that, so what I was saying there is that if you are like, it's so important for you to redefine the relationship in a way that ensures that your needs are not going to be compromised. And I think that when it comes to conflict avoidance, it's really important to recognize that this is actually like negatively impacting everybody's needs, not just the person who's being avoided. It's going to be affecting, because that, like, the lack of resolution is going to be eating away underneath the surface at the needs of the person who isn't speaking up. And so it's like, oh, I remembered it, it's come back. The other thing about having these conversations more regularly is also when you start to notice or see that there's like a little bit of a shift in the energy or something feels slightly off, it can actually invite you to do the inquiry to figure out what's going on, to actually address the issue, even if the other person hasn't brought it to you. So it's like we had a situation, I think it was like yesterday or the day before, we were working and we were doing some stuff and we had like a miscommunication. And I'm like, the energy feels prickly in this moment. And I'm like, okay, what did I do in that moment? Okay, what I did was this, and I assumed this, and I didn't communicate that. And I was able to proactively say, I didn't have to wait for Serena to be like, so you did this thing, and it kind of made me feel a little uncomfortable, and this is why we're having this conversation now. I was able to go, oh, I can tell there's something off, because we've been in this situation enough times that I can tell when something's off. And sometimes it might be well, there's something off with Serena because she's got stuff going on. But sometimes it's oh no, it's a minor thing, and she's trying to get through the thing that we're doing. So she's not wanting to have a side conversation about this small thing, because it really is a small thing. We know when we do have the conversation, it's going to be dealt with like that anyway. So it doesn't need to be made a big thing of right now. But in that moment, I could feel the energy in the space. I could feel the slight discomfort of like something's off. And I was able to say to you, I'm really sorry. I totally realized that I thought I communicated that clearly, and I realized I hadn't, and I apologize for that. And I'll make the effort to try and do that better in the future. And immediately the energy shifted again. Like it was so, and it was maybe 5 or 10 seconds worth of conversation. And Serena was like, thank you, I really appreciate that. Moving swiftly on. And it meant that the thing that we were doing became more enjoyable then, because there was no sticky energy in the place that was kind of like, oh, I don't like it. So once you get into the habit of doing this, if you're willing to have the uncomfortable conversations when you are negatively impacted, you can also be willing to have the conversations when you negatively impact others. And the more that you're willing to have those conversations when you are the one that has, maybe unintentionally, maybe inadvertently, maybe by accident, impacted somebody else, what it does is it encourages them. It tells them, oh, this person actually wants to address these things when they come up, even if it's when they've done it. It makes them more inclined to bring those things to you as well. And it opens up the space and encourages more of that dialogue and conversation, which strengthens and deepens and creates more bond in the relationships that you have in your life. I'm glad it came back. Anything you want to add before we finish up?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I think we'll call it there before we have any other ideas that fly in, fly out, and then we end up spending half an hour trying to get them back again. So we'll be back next week with an episode where we're going to be talking about the different kinds of discomfort and what exactly is the difference between, it's important for you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and when that's not true, because there are exceptions to the rule. So we'll be back next week with that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Between now and then, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us.
And remember, the way to avoid conflict avoidance is to practice having the uncomfortable conversations.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.